Everybody is concerned about the future. You are living out the proof of the validity of what you believe about the future. So let's turn to what Jesus had to say. When asked the question, tell us when these things will happen and what the sign of your coming and of the end of the age. Now that's Matthew 24, verse 3. Then Jesus continues to say, watch out that no one deceive you. For many will come in my name saying, I am the Messiah, and they will deceive many. And you're going to hear of wars and rumors of wars, so that you are not alarmed, because these things must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise up against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places, and earthquakes and all these events are the beginning of birth pains. Then there is a description of the worst of times. Then they shall hand you over for persecution, and they'll kill you. Good news. You'll be hated by all nations because of my name. Then many will take offense, betray one another, hate one another. Many false prophets will rise up and deceive many, because lawlessness will multiply. The love of many shall wax cold. But the one who endures to the end will be delivered. Now, this is confusing. We're being torn apart. We're living in that day that Jesus prophesied. But then so did those of every succeeding age. But I'm going to drop something on you today, and we'll deal this time and the next time with this issue that levels it all, makes it understandable, and gives us an undying hope. So I want you to get ready for that. I've just read what Jesus said up to this point. So I want to read it carefully, then I want to break it down, and I want you to wind up in a few minutes with a heart full of hope. Now hear this. The good news of the kingdom will be proclaimed to all the world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end shall come. Now look, I don't understand what the end is, but I know that every age, in some sense, has an end. You and I must accept, by the grace of God, the discernment to find out in our day what end he's talking about. But before we get there, I want to just lay this fact before you, and if I could say it again and again and again, with the guarantee that you got it, that's all I'd do for the next few minutes. Hear it now. And the gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the earth as a testimony to all nations. I want you to let that sink in. And I want to break it down. The gospel of the kingdom will be preached. Now you say, well, that just about has taken place. Look, it hasn't taken place in America yet. We're preaching a gospel. It's not a false gospel. It is simply an inadequate gospel. Now Jesus preached the good news, the gospel. The word is ta euangelion, the good news, the gospel. And that's audacious. That's audacity to call anything the good news. Good news is one thing. The good news specifies that what we are talking about is the ultimate good news. So we're not talking about the gospel of salvation or the gospel of the atonement. Jesus did not preach that for an obvious reason. He hadn't died yet. He wasn't raised yet. There wasn't a gospel of salvation to be preached. Jesus never invited people to salvation. He invited them to follow him. And the gospel of the kingdom is the gospel that declares the eternal rule and reign of God over all that is. There is a kingdom. That kingdom is the hope of civilization. That kingdom is the ultimate reality. And the good news of the kingdom is simply the proclamation of the kingdom gospel as the good news. Now what are we talking about? The gospel of the kingdom. We're talking about the nature of God as sovereign. God rules. Get that into your mind. Our best bet is not going to heaven when we die. That's not what Jesus died for. That's included in the package deal. But when you said yes to Jesus Christ, you were saying yes to the plan of God for your life that involves his rule over you all the time. Jesus asked you to follow him. Are you following him? We will talk before we're through with this series about seeking the kingdom first. That's a headful, a heartful, a mouthful. But let's look again as we come to the end of this gospel, this good news of the kingdom. The good news of the kingdom is that God rules over everything and everybody, everywhere, for all time and eternity. The gospel of salvation is simply the good news added to the good news that completes the good news, and we have a grid for living the life of the kingdom. I'm going to make a shocking statement to you. I trust it'll be, and maybe you can listen more clearly. Most of us were saved under gospel preaching. That is, Jesus Christ died, was buried, rose from the tomb, and on with that part of the gospel. If there is no gospel of the kingdom, no good news of the kingdom, a track to run on, a life to live, a direction from God by which we can live and mean something to him and to the world. The gospel of the kingdom. If you have not discovered the gospel of the kingdom, I'll tell you what you have. I know. That's the way I lived. I was saved in the morning service of a revival meeting 71 years ago. And all I got, Jesus died for you. Jesus was buried, rose from the grave, and wants to get inside your life. Well, that sounded like a good deal to me. And it was, because my sins were forgiven. I was certified going to heaven. But in the meanwhile, there was no gospel, the good news of living the life I had received. Once the gospel of the kingdom begins to be preached, there will come a tsunami of hope, excitement, passion, and if you please, yes, renewal and revival and awakening. God bless you as you begin to investigate more seriously the gospel of the kingdom.